All right, let's jump right in. Today, we're exploring one of the most widely documented and, honestly, just most fascinating near-death experiences of the modern era. We're going to map out the incredible story of Howard Storm, charting his journey from strict, rigid disbelief to an entirely different kind of existence. If you appreciate understanding the real mechanics of a profound human transformation and hearing detailed accounts of those who claim to have crossed over and come back, well, you are absolutely in the right place for this explainer. Okay, let's dive into this. We are looking at a stark contrast between two wildly different personas. On one side, we have a man from 1985, an aggressive, fiercely atheist art professor. On the other side, his later persona, a Christian minister dedicating his days to teaching love and forgiveness. I mean, it almost seems like two entirely different people, right? But this is the exact same man. So the overarching question we're exploring today is simply this. What kind of event is powerful enough to bridge the gap between these two completely opposite identities? Section 1. The Committed Atheist. Life Before the Crisis. So let's picture his world back in 1985. Howard Storm wasn't just, a casual non-believer. He was a deeply committed atheist. By his own later admission, he had a pretty aggressive personality. He was the chairman of the art department at Northern Kentucky University, which is a highly prestigious, intellectually demanding role. His entire worldview was built strictly on what you can see, touch, and prove. His drive? Rooted in personal fame, professional success, and frankly, academic ego. There was absolutely no room in his strict rationalist paradigm for anything spiritual or mystical. He was a man totally anchored in the material world. And let me tell you, it is incredibly rare in psychology for someone in midlife, deeply entrenched in a career and worldview like this, to undergo a total personality pivot. Section 2. The Catalyst. A medical crisis in Paris. Let's walk through the timeline here. Picture this. Storm is in Paris, leading a student field trip. Out of nowhere, he suffers a duodenal perforation. That's a life-threatening tearing in the small intestine. This isn't some slow-moving illness. It's an immediate, catastrophic medical emergency. He gets rushed to a hospital, but then finds himself waiting for hours for emergency surgery. During this agonizing wait, his physical pain escalates to just unimaginable levels. Until, completely overwhelmed by the trauma, he suddenly loses consciousness. Section 3. The hellish descent. Out of body. According to Storm's account of the event, he opened his eyes expecting the agony to just continue, but instead he found himself completely free of pain. But here's the jarring twist. He was standing next to his hospital bed, looking down in horror at his own physical body lying right there. Imagine the sensory shock of that moment. Literally seconds before, he was defined entirely by blinding physical pain, and now he's completely detached from it, standing as a separate consciousness observing his own dying shell. Let's map out how this builds into something truly terrifying. We've broken down his descent into 4 clear steps. Step 1. In this out-of-body state, he hears unfamiliar voices calling his name, drawing him out into the hospital hallway. Step 2. He follows them, wandering away from his body and into this growing foggy darkness. Step 3 is where the real terror sets in. He slowly realizes that the entities leading him are not benevolent at all. They are deeply hostile. And finally, step 4, in the pitch black, these entities begin to mock him, attack him, and emotionally tear him apart. It is a highly structured, chronological descent straight into psychological horror. He's eventually left slumped in the darkness, experiencing what he vividly described as a hellish reality of complete despair. He is completely broken down, isolated, and totally without hope. And it's in this absolute nadir, this bottomless low point, that something entirely uncharacteristic happens. A voice in his mind suddenly tells him to pray. The sheer paradox of the situation is just wild. Here we have a lifelong, aggressive atheist who's being told to pray. He literally didn't know how. So what does he do? He begins digging deep into his distant memory, repeating these fragmented verses from his childhood Sunday school days. And the reaction? It's immediate. As he starts reciting these broken verses, the hostile entities surrounding him actually begin to recoil at the mere mention of God. Seeing this reaction, Storm suddenly realizes, for sure, that he needs real, profound help. Section 4. The Radiant Rescue. A Cry from the Heart. Alone in the darkness, having seen the entities pull back, Storm cries out from the very bottom of his heart, "Jesus, please save me." Those 4 words carry incredible dramatic weight. I mean, this isn't a theological debate for him anymore. It's a desperate, raw plea for rescue from a man who, just hours earlier, would have completely scoffed at the very idea. And this brilliantly illustrates the intense sensory pivot that happens next.
He immediately goes from foggy darkness, hostility, and profound despair to a brilliant, intensely warm light that pierces the darkness, bringing an overwhelming sense of absolute safety. The environment literally flips from a nightmare to a sanctuary in an instant.
Storm states that out of this intense light, a figure of immense radiance and profound love emerged. According to his account, he immediately, inherently knew that this presence was Jesus. He describes being physically and spiritually lifted out of the horrific darkness and enveloped in an environment of total, absolute safety. The attack was over. Section 5. The real-life impact. Waking up. When Storm eventually survived his emergency surgery and opened his eyes back in the physical world, in that hospital bed in Paris, a whole new chapter began. To understand what happens next, we need to introduce a psychological concept called the radical transformation encounter. This is defined as an experience that completely dismantles a person's former worldview and personality, resulting in an entirely new life path. This elevates Storm's narrative from just a fascinating mystical story into a documented, highly observable psychological phenomenon. We can actually track the concrete changes in his real-world behavior. So let's look at the immediate aftermath. When Storm woke up, he didn't just brush this off as a hallucination or go back to his old life with a crazy dinner party story. The encounter completely dismantled his former worldview. He took massive, concrete action. He actually resigned from his highly prestigious position as an art professor. He walked away from the academic ego and the personal fame he'd spent a lifetime building. Instead, he dedicated his life to his newfound faith and became an ordained Christian minister. I mean, this was a total radical life rewrite.
So the crucial point is how this single event dictated the rest of his days. He found a completely new purpose. He spent the remainder of his life writing and speaking globally about his experience. He recounted fascinating details, including this profound life review he experienced during the event, where he saw his actions and their direct impacts on others. He shifted his life's focus entirely away from himself, dedicating all his energy to teaching the principles of love, forgiveness, and service to others. We started this explainer looking at two completely different men, an aggressive atheist and a compassionate minister, but they are the exact same person, separated only by a few agonizing hours in a Paris hospital. Which leaves us with this final thought to ponder. How does a brief medical crisis completely rewrite a person's purpose so deeply that they are never, ever the same again? Is it simply the brain reacting to extreme trauma? Or is it, as Storm vehemently maintained, a genuine encounter with grace? It's a profound mystery for sure, and one that absolutely makes you rethink the boundaries of human experience. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and keep exploring.